Did Jesus break the Sabbath? Many Christians today believe that Jesus broke the Sabbath and that by breaking the Sabbath has signified that we no longer need to keep it today. Is this true? Did Jesus sin? This is a very serious allegation. We will look in the scriptures of two instances in which Jesus supposedly broke the Sabbath, and we will decide for ourselves whether it is true and whether the Sabbath still applies for us today. Now the first scripture is found in John chapter 5 verses 1 to 18. It says, "After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first after the stirring of the water was made well of whatever disease he had. Now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he already had been in that condition a long time, he said to him, 'Do you want to be made well?' The sick man answered him, 'Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I am coming, another steps down before me.' Jesus said to him, 'Rise, take up your bed and walk.' And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked. And that day was the Sabbath. The Jews therefore said to him who was cured, 'It is the Sabbath. It is not lawful for you to carry your bed.' He answered them, 'He who made me well said to me, Take up your bed and walk.' Then they asked him, 'Who is the man who said to you, Take up your bed and walk?' But the one who was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn, a multitude being in that place. Afterward Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, 'See, you have been made well. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you.' The man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus who made him well. For this reason, the Jews persecuted Jesus and sought to kill him, because he had done these things on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered them, 'My Father has been working until now, and I have been working.' Therefore the Jews sought all the more to kill him, because he not only broke the Sabbath, but also said that God was his Father, making himself equal with God." In verse 17, it says that Jesus has been working just as his Father was working up till now, meaning that there is some type of work that is allowed during the Sabbath. And one example is healing on the Sabbath, just as Jesus did. Saving life, protecting life, and preserving life are all good to do on the Sabbath. For example, a hospital cannot stop operations on the Sabbath day because there are emergencies, life-threatening emergencies such as heart attack, for example, stroke, or trauma, or any kind of accidents that need to be attended immediately, otherwise many people could die. And as a professional myself in the medical field, as a nurse, you cannot leave a very sick person even just for 5 minutes. A lot of things can happen in 5 minutes. Therefore, it is good to do these kind of things to preserve, protect, and save life on the Sabbath. Now, another instance in which Jesus was accused of breaking the Sabbath is in Matthew chapter 12, verses 9 to 14. It says, "Now when he had departed from there, he went into their synagogue, and behold, there was a man who had a withered hand. And they asked him, saying, 'Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath?' That they might accuse him. Then he said to them, 'What man is there among you who has one sheep, and it falls into a pit on the Sabbath? Will not lay hold of it and lift it out? Of how much more value then is a man than a sheep? Therefore it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath.' Then he said to the man, 'Stretch out your hand.' And he stretched it out and was restored as whole as the other. Then the Pharisees went out and plotted against him how they might destroy him." Now, did Jesus sin by healing on the Sabbath? Absolutely not. It is good to do good on the Sabbath, as Jesus said. It is good to save, to preserve, and to protect life. And we should do the same thing because Jesus is our example. And to those who think that Jesus sinned, this is what is written in the Bible. 2 Corinthians 5:21, it says, "For he hath made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, who knew no sin to be sin for us, that we might be made the righteousness of God in him." And again, in John 14:30, "Hereafter I will not talk much with you, for the prince of this world cometh, and hath nothing in me." That means the Satan came to Jesus and could not find any fault at all or sin, or cause Jesus to fall into temptation. He tried in the wilderness, he tried many times during his ministry, but found nothing wrong with Jesus. And again, it says in Hebrews 4:15, it says, "For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin." Jesus never sinned, Jesus did not break the Sabbath, and Jesus is our example in doing what is really good to do on the Sabbath. And as Jesus lived a life of perfect obedience and sinlessness, we should also do the same. In John 15 verse 10, Jesus says, "If ye keep my commandments, ye shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love." Now, does the Sabbath still apply for us today? Jesus gave this example in Luke chapter 4 verse 16. "And he came to Nazareth where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up for to read." It says as his custom was, that means it is his pattern of life. Jesus kept the Sabbath, he healed on the Sabbath, he ministered, he taught, he read the Bible, he worshiped God, he did all these good things to be our example, and that we should do the same thing. And lastly, in Mark chapter 2 verse 27 says, "The Sabbath was made for man," which means that it is made for our own benefit. And one of the benefits of the Sabbath is in this video right here. And if you like this kind of content, make sure you share, like, or subscribe, or leave a question below, and we'll see you in the next one. God bless.